Now it's got more detail. One of the things is that the card says not to open your window, and there's a reason why you don't open your window. And number one, when you open your window, the police officer can say he smelled alcohol inside the car.
Right.
Number two, he's going to use it to look around inside the car, maybe claim he sees something. You don't want to open that window if you can avoid it. So the reason people think they have to open the window is they think they have to hand over their ID, or they think they have to open it to accept a ticket. So the rule in Florida is you're not required to sign a ticket unless it's for more than 30 miles an hour over the limit. I'm reading from my own card now. Passing a stop school bus, having an improper load, if there's a criminal violation like reckless driving, or where there has been a death or serious injury. Other than that, you don't have to sign the ticket.
I have a question for you, Warren.
Yes.
I think you report on this on your site, Carlos. So the woman who was arrested.
I didn't report on it, but I was going to ask that. So
yeah, the cop officer broke her window and pulled her out of the vehicle because she didn't want to open the window and because she didn't want to sign the ticket.
Did you see that video?
I didn't see that, but here's the question: what was she originally accused of?
I'm not sure.
It was like speeding.
What was it, Carlos?
Okay, so if it's speeding that's not more than 30 miles an hour over the limit, she's not required to sign the ticket. And a good lawyer contesting that charge would confront the officer and say, hey, wait a minute, why did you need her to open her window? If a lawyer, now one of the problems, a lot of lawyers don't like that kind of confrontation. And the reality is if we can walk in and do what we did today, judge, cop's not here, can we all get home? Can we all go home now? Then that's easy, right? And what we want to do for our clients is make it easy. You got to walk home, right?
Correct, yeah.
You know, you're happy walking home.
I'm glad I walked home today.
Yeah, so, you know, one of my hopes is I think there's some activists out there who don't mind challenging the police. And this card is really, it's primarily for activists, but for regular people, I still think you got to evaluate your situation. You haven't had any alcohol at all and you're going through a DUI checkpoint, I'd roll down the window, I'd be cooperative with the police, because the reality is if you don't have any alcohol in your system, you're probably going to be okay. And you haven't taken any prescription drugs, and you haven't taken any non-prescription drugs, and you haven't taken any illegal drugs. You are clean, okay? If you are clean, then and you don't have any drugs in the car, you don't have anything they're going to find, if you're clean, then this may not be right for you, unless you're like me and you just want to mess with the cops and see what happens. So for those people, this isn't what this is about. This is about the person who was out with friends on a Friday night, and he had a couple drinks at a bar. And he knows he's sober, and he's got friends who are going to testify he's fine, but you know, I still don't want to have that conversation with the police. And the problem for the police officer is he's got to get through this. And he's going to look at this and he's going to say, okay, wait a minute. And the key about having these statutes here, it says section 318.14 subsection 2, it says 322.15. This is not what police officers are used to. So if they're not used to it, now they're like, okay, what do I do now?
So let me get this straight. So you get pulled over, you can hand him your license, or you can just show him your license?
No. You hold this card up to the window. If he asks for your license, put the card down, you take your license out, and you put it up to the window.
Okay.
And you press the card right up against the window. If he asks for your insurance, press it up against the window. If he asks for your registration, whatever document he asks for that he's entitled to, your concealed carry license if you have one, press it up against the window. There is nothing in the law that requires you to hand it to him for him to hold it.
So they can't turn around and say, I suspected this license was fake somehow?
They better have a damn good reason for it.
Yeah.
You know, and here's the thing, are you driving your own car? Does he run the plate and see that the plate matches the name?
Yeah.
He's got, you know,
Okay.
I think one of these people don't get is a police officer can't just say, well, I had a hunch,
Yeah.
and then smash in your window. He's got to have something more. And you asked me specifically about this case of smashing in a window. There was a case in Tampa where a woman was pulled over for an expired plate, which is not one of the offenses we talked about, right? And she initially rolled down her window. That's
the one we're referring to. That's the one we're referring to, yeah.
Okay. So, no, this is a while ago.
Okay.
This isn't recent.
Okay, there was another one recently from a few months ago.
So this is older than that. I'm confident of that. She rolls down her window. She talks to him initially. She rolls back up the window. Maybe it is the same case, but I don't think so. Rolls the window back up, and she's waiting for her husband to come to the scene. Yeah. And the police officer isn't happy, and he smashes in the window because, well, there's the question. Well, why did you smash in the window? And that's a problem for the police officer. Well, why did you need to smash in the window? Yeah. And they don't really have a good reason to smash in the window. The reason is, well, I needed her to sign the ticket. Well, no, under Florida law, she doesn't have to sign the ticket. Yeah. Now, that's why it says, please put any tickets under the windshield wiper. Down here it says, please put, to the police officer, please put any tickets under the windshield wiper. If the police officer has to hand you the ticket, he doesn't have to hand you the ticket. You've said, I will accept it under my windshield wiper. you don't have to roll down the window accept the ticket. He can put it under your windshield wiper.
Because they normally say, and I've been through this, where you don't want to sign it. They say, well, you're signing it. You're not admitting guilt. You're just signing.
You're not required to sign it.
Okay.
Under Florida law, section 318.14,
How about
subsection
other
2.
states? Are you familiar with their laws about that?
In New York, where I practice a lot, you don't generally sign tickets at all. In California, you can be required to ticket. One of the things that's going on is a lot of states are going to what are known as electronic tickets.
Yeah.
There's nowhere for you to sign.
Okay.
There's no opportunity to sign the ticket. So I think that's going away with electronic ticketing.
Yeah.
Electronic ticketing is they give you a printout, but they actually send the ticket electronically to the court. So there are other states where it may matter, and every state's different. In California, they can require you to sign the ticket, but they often don't.
Yeah.
And they don't necessarily know. This is one of the things about this card. They don't necessarily know that you're required to sign the ticket.
No.
They might think you're required to sign the ticket, but they don't know. And so if you show them this card and you say, look, under this law, I'm right. Listen, I know I'm right. Okay, you don't know that I'm right. You haven't read this law, but I'm telling you I'm right. I'm confident. In Florida, I'm right. In New York, I'm right. I'm confident that in California that, but the police officer's not sure. It's kind of that situation where I said the number one thing is they want to get home safe, right?
Yeah.
Well, the number two thing is they don't want to lose their job and they don't want to get sued.
Yeah.
So I was going to say this one in Florida, when he smashed in her window, the case that I saw was she sued him because she was injured. She got glass in her eye or whatever. And she sued the police officer, and the judge in Tampa refused to dismiss the case, a federal judge. Said, well, wait a minute. What was so important you had to smash in the window? You know, on the evidence that he had before him at this initial motion, he didn't see enough to dismiss the case. And that's, from the police perspective, I've talked to cops about this. They don't want to get sued.
Yeah.
They do not want to visit federal court. They do not want to head down there. They don't like it.
Really? I mean, they sure do act like they don't mind that at all.
Well, I talked to a friend of mine who's a police officer. He said the worst thing he ever saw in his life was getting a subpoena from a federal judge.
So it's the
Exactly.
federal, really, because the way they violate our rights every single day.
But they don't usually get sued. And when you
Right.
present them with something like this, okay, this guy either is a lawyer or he has a lawyer. Because you know, by the way, in the language, I want my lawyer. It doesn't say I want a lawyer.
Yeah.
And that's important. It says I want my lawyer. You don't have the right at that stage of the encounter to a public defender.
Yeah.
You're on the side of the road at a checkpoint, you're at the side of the road at a traffic stop. You do not have the right to a public defender yet.
Yeah.
You're not charged with a crime, you're not facing jail time yet. You're not at that stage of the game where you have the right to a public defender, where they have to provide you with a lawyer. But you always have the right to your own lawyer.
So let me ask you this. So, I mean, you see this on TV all the time, and I got my lawyers on speed dial. You know, but do I want to bother them at 2 a.m. where they're home with their family, and they're going to be like, well, I can't do anything now. What are they going to do? What can
Carlos?
you do? How does that work out?
You can call me at 2 a.m.
Yeah. And what will you do? You head down to the scene, or
Well, you're going to call me and talk to me about the situation,
Yeah.
and it depends. It's very dependent on the situation. Typically, what will happen is my client, when I have these, it doesn't happen very often because people don't think to call the police. First of all, when they're drunk, they're not thinking straight. They don't remember to use the car, whatever. You know, for the drunk people, it's not going to help because they're not going to know what to do. But one thing that happens commonly is you call me, and I say, well, you know, I make sure it's okay to open the window first. I say, well, hand my phone to the cop. Let me talk to him.
Yeah.
Police officer's happy to talk to me.
Yeah.
Because he knows I'm going to be reasonable. He's going to be able to have a conversation with me, and we're going to be able to figure out what are we doing here, what's going on here. And a typical line I'll have, a good lawyer will have, is, officer, if I come down, can I help resolve this situation? And the officer just wants to know that this is being taken care of.
Yeah.
So, but that depends on situation to situation. But a good example is what you asked me earlier before we were on camera here. What if I want to? They want me to blow in a machine. Mm-hmm. Well, you probably ought to talk to a lawyer before you blow in a machine.
Okay.
Before you consent to some kind of test. And
How about roadside sobriety test?
Well, my opinion is you shouldn't do them.
Okay.
That's a long conversation. By the way, I wrote a book and I discussed the roadside sobriety test extensively in the book. The book is Fair DUI, Stay Safe and Sane in a World Gone Mad, spelled MADD.
Is that on your website?
It's on Amazon, it's on fairdui.org. It's featured at the beginning of the website. And it's just driven by all the cases I've had where I've seen clients do what I don't think they should do. And I want to give people the idea what they should do. And I do extensively go through why field sobriety tests are not reliable. And they don't consider them generally reliable in Florida in the courts.
Yeah. Okay. Now let's get back to Taylor's case here.
Sure.
You know, a lot of people, I write about a lot of people who get arrested. And I don't really follow up on their cases because I'm really busy keeping up with everybody else getting arrested. But I know from my own experience, it's hell. You get arrested, it's very stressful. I mean, you have to pay a lot of money, and you have this constant fear that you're going to get convicted. And if you don't find a good lawyer, then you're really left to almost nothing. A public defender who may or may not care. But you have to pay for a good lawyer. In this case, it was pro bono. So, I mean, what can people do? What would you have done if it wasn't for Warren stepping up and say, I want to take your case?
Well, in my case, it was hard to kind of grasp in essence, because lawyers, they wanted $2,000 plus just to go to prove my case. With Warren's case here, we went to trial today, and it was dismissed. Yeah. So I would have paid $2,000 for someone just to,
But you did go to an arraignment where you pleaded not guilty?
Correct.
Because you could have just accepted to get guilty and just go on with your life, right?
They wanted to offer a plea bargain, which was the advocate program. No jail time. You go to a class, you pay the class. But
was it pretrial diversion?
Pretrial diversion, yes.
Okay, no, actually, you don't get convicted. On a pretrial diversion, I think normally you don't get convicted. Or was it withhold adjudication?
Pretrial diversion.
Yeah, but then you're not.
Pretrial diversion, you go through the class and the case gets dismissed when you're done.
Really? So
it's not as good as getting it dismissed.
Right.
In the sense that you can say, we went to court,
we showed up. You're still feeding money to the state. You're still.
Oh, God.
And
don't get me started on that one.
And you're still.
That's a whole other can of worms.
And it's like, I like to prove to these cops that they're wrong. But when you kind of do that, does it really show the cops they're wrong? It shows, no, well, we just came to some kind of agreement and everybody's right and nobody's wrong or whatever.
I think what you're doing in terms of photography, in videotaping the police when they do things wrong and publicizing it and getting more attention to it, and the more we have videos like this showing police doing something wrong, I think that really goes a long way. And the reality ultimately is when police officers get fired for doing things wrong.
But they never do.
They do. They do some.
They get fired for actually whistleblowing on the bad cops. That's
what
we're going to be able
to
see.
It does happen when a cop does something bad enough every once in a while. But the problem is when 1,000 cops do something wrong, one of them maybe gets fired.
Yeah.
Maybe. Probably not. Probably not even one.
What I learned is that a company can't learn from their mistakes unless they're hit where it hurts. That's in their pockets, unfortunately.
Unless what?
It's in their pockets. It's hit with if you have them in the pockets where it hurts at.
Right, but then even then is our pockets.
In essence, yes.
When it comes down to
it. In theory, yeah. If you roll it back.
But they don't really care. I mean, you're not taking, even if they get put on administrative leave, as paid administrative leave, and they sit home and they're getting paid. Some of them are home for more than a year, and they come back, they get their job back, or if they by coincidence or by miracle they get unpaid administrative leave, they come back and get back pay.
You're touching on one of my goals in this card. One of my goals in this card is I want to get that video. Yeah. Okay. I want to be. I don't mind being controversial. Okay. And I want to be. I'm imagining that moment when I'm being interviewed by Matt Lauer or somebody on the Today Show or some mainstream media figure, saying, Warren, why are you helping drunks get away with drunk driving? Yeah. Okay. Because that's people see this and they're like, you're helping criminals get away with stuff. Well, no, I'm helping people assert their constitutional rights. Right. But I'm waiting for that moment when I can see somebody like those mainstream media guys saying, well, I'd be afraid to do that. Well, really, why would you be afraid? And bring out of them that they'd be afraid that police would abuse them if they assert their constitutional rights.
And that's true. I mean, that can very well happen.
It happens a lot. And people are afraid to assert their constitutional rights because they're afraid to be abused. But I want to get one of those mainstream media figures to say, well, I'd be afraid the cops would do something to me. I'd be afraid they'd smash in my window. I'd be afraid they'd beat me up. So, well, then the problem isn't me handing out these cards to people. The problem is that we have police officers scaring people, and innocent people should not be scared of the police.
But we are, and we are in fear of our cops, and it's for very good reason. I mean, you can't even, especially down here in Miami, you can't even look at a cop without him giving you the dirty eye.
Or in fear of being beat up.
Yeah, you can't ask for his badge number without him. And we saw Pete from Cop Law getting arrested the other day in San Francisco because he asked a cop for his badge number, and he got arrested for jaywalking. He stepped 1 foot into the street. The cop was further into the street, and we've seen that happen numerous times. So cops are setting the standard. You don't talk to us. You don't ask us any questions. You don't ask us our name. And we are afraid because you may get beat up, you may get thrown in jail, you lose your job because if you don't show up to job to your work the next day because you're in jail, then you lose your job. And you were talking about possibly losing your job.
That's the biggest thing. I spent over I think it was 18, 20 hours in jail, and I was supposed to go to work on Monday. I didn't show up. They didn't know where I was. They didn't know what happened to me. So I got written up for it. I got disciplined for it. I mean, it's like you can call your job from jail and say, hey, by the way, guys, I'm in jail, can't come to work today. Oh, don't come in anymore, you know?
Yeah.
But this is how it is. And
No, and if you had lost your job because of it, you asked me earlier whether there's a civil rights lawsuit, and I don't really do so. Not that I've never done it, but it's not really my cup of tea, and there's lawyers who do a lot of it, and you'd rather hire them than me for that. I'm a criminal defense lawyer. I do some personal injury cases. I'm not saying I'd never do a civil rights case, but that's a steep learning curve, and you don't want me to screw up your case. you don't want me to learn on your case. You want to hire somebody who already knows it. But you asked me before, well, could early, I think before we went on the air, would there be a civil rights case in this? And what a civil rights lawyer is looking for is, are there what we call damages?
Yeah.
Did you lose enough that there's enough at stake to make it worth challenging the police and going through all the hurdles we're going to go through in federal court to get there? Some ways lawyers can make money on the fee itself. You can get the lawyer can get his fees even if you get $1 in damages in some situations. But again, I'm not that familiar with those things.
But see, that's the issue, and you're right. I've seen that a lot where Taylor gets arrested. He gets thrown in jail. His whole life is turned upside down for a couple of months, and then we can't sue them because he didn't get beat up. He didn't end up with broken ribs. He didn't end up in a hospital. You
can sue them, but a lawyer's not going to do that one on a contingency.
Right.
Well, I shouldn't say that. There may be a lawyer out there who will. I wouldn't take a case like that on a contingency fee, because I'm thinking, all right, I'm going to spend how many hours working on this thing, and I may never get a penny.